This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, welcome everyone. Parshas Bereishis. Today, b'siyata d'shmaya, we're going to focus on one particular pasuk in this week's Haftorah. With Hashem's help, we're going to try to focus on some of the Haftorahs this year when we have the opportunity. So this week's Haftorah comes from the Navi Yeshaya, Parak Mem Beis, Psukim Hey through Chaf Hey, and Parak Mem Gimel, Pasuk Aleph through Yud. The Sfardim, they're done already, Mem Beis Chaf Aleph. You know, Sfardim are more efficient. They accomplish what they need to in a much shorter time. We Ashkenazim, we take longer to do what we need to do. Anyway, what is the connection between this week's Parsha and the Haftorah? What's the connection between the Haftorah and the Parsha? By the way, the connection should be obvious. I mean, the Haftorah begins, Kayamar Okel Hashem Borei Hashamayim V'noitehem Roi Kahoretz V'tzed Soeha Noisei Neshama So we talk about the fact that Hashem created the heavens and spread out the earth, and therefore this is a reference, of course, to the creation of the world. So in the Sefer Chazayin David, he brings the connection is obvious. This includes all aspects of the Bria, from heaven to earth, man, animals, the forest, all the trees, which is a perfect Haftorah connecting to the Parsha of the week. I will refer you to Pasuk Ches. It says, Ani Hashem Hu Shemi Uchvaydi Le'acher Lo Yateinu Sehilasi Lapsilim. I am God Hu Shemi. This is clearly a reference to the fact that Hashem's name are Ani and Hu. Ani V'hai Hoshiana, right? Ani Hashem Hu Shemi. I will also refer you to the pasuk that says, Kol hanikra v'shmi v'lichvaydi b'rasiv yitzartiv af asisiv. We know that there are four worlds. There's the world of Asiya, that's the world we're in. Then Yitzira, where all the celestial bodies are. The Olam Habriya, where the Malachim are. And the Olam HaAtzilus, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. This is alluded to in that pasuk. Kol hanikra v'shmi v'lichvaydi. That's the Olam HaAtzilus. Berasav Olam Habriya. Yitzartiv Olam HaYitzira. Af Asisiv Olam HaAsiya. Fine. But then the final pasuk that the Sfardim read, Adonai chafetz leman sekai yagdil Torah v'yadir. God desired, for the sake of His righteousness, to make the Torah great and glorious. Okay, what does that mean? So let us begin. There's a medrash in Bamidbar Rabbah, Parak Tezvav Pasuk Beis. It's going on the menorah. And it says about the menorah, B'halois chas haneira, Yisesh Amar HaKosov, Hashem chafetz leman tzidkai, Yagdil Torah v'yadir. God desired for His righteousness to make the Torah great and glorious. Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe. God said to Moshe, I don't need the light. I didn't tell you to light the menorah because I need the light. For me, the darkness and the light are all the same. But why did I tell you to light the menorah? Hashem chafetz leman tzidka yagdil Torah v'yadir. So what exactly does this mean? That God wanted to make the Torah great and glorious, and this is alluded to in the menorah. How does the menorah show that Hashem wanted to make the Torah great and glorious? This is alluded. This is the question of the Chida. The Chida wrote two Sfarim on the Haftorahs. One sefer the Chida wrote on the Haftorahs is Tzavarei Shalal, and that we're going to quote from extensively today. Another sefer the Chida wrote on the Haftarahs is Nachal Soreik. And actually, the Ben Ish Chai also wrote 2 volumes on the Haftarahs. It was out of print for a year. My good friend Rabbi Schwartz was able to get me a copy. The name of it is Pirkas Chaim. It's a beautiful set on the Haftarahs that we hope to be using in the future. But the Chida wants to know, how is the lighting the menorah an example of Hashem chafetz leman tzidkai yagdil Torah v'yadir. There's an interesting medrash. If I were to ask you, what is the middle sefer of the Chumash? What's the middle Chumash? What's the navel of the Chumash? Vayikra. So there's a medrash Tehillim. It says, "Bitnecha aremas chitim." Your belly is a pile of wheat. Zeh Torah's kohanim. Almost as if to say the navel of the Torah is Vayikra. Likewise, there's an ancient text of the Medrash Tanchuma on the pasuk in Shiur, "Bitnecha aremas chitim." Amar Rabbi Yochanan, aremas chitim is Torah's kohanim. What? Shekula chatois v'ashamayis chatasu ashamhu v'hu nasan be'emtza Torah v'kula chatois v'ashamayis. What's the middle of the Torah? What's the navel of the Torah? The carbon chatos. Somehow, the carbon chatos is the middle of the Torah. Well, the Chida, could you pass that remote control for a moment? The Chida, in the Tzavarei Shalal, brings over here a little bit of a different version of this medrash, and I'm going to discuss that in a moment. The Chida, number 7, Ve'efshel loymar behektim ma'amaram zal. The Chida brings a medrash in Bamidbar. I actually tried to find the medrash, and I was not able to find it. And the reason I was not able to find it is because it doesn't exist. But the Chida quotes it, and I was very pleased to see at the end of the piece of the Chida, he says, "I'll tell you the truth. There's no such medrash." But we'll see what the Chida says. But right now the Chida quotes it as a medrash. He says on the pasuk in Bamidbar, Sinai ba'ayal mayed ve'echel ha'chodesh hasheni v'shana hashenis zeh she'amar ha'kosav bitnecha aremas chitim. Just like the navel is in the middle, so too Taras Kayhanim is in the middle. This medrash requires elucidation. We're going to give a hakdama, says the Chida, with another medrash, and we saw similar in the medrash Tanchuma. On the pasuk, bitnecha aremas chitim is Toras koyanim chitim chataim. What's the meaning of this? If I were to ask you the following question, how many books are there in Chumash? What would the answer be? Most people say 5, but it's not really right. Really, there's 7 books in the Chumash. What are the 7 books in the Chumash? Bereishis, Shemais, Vayikra, Bamidbar before Vayhi ben Saya, Bamidbar after Vayhi ben Saya, and Devar. So there's a machlokes, because if you look in the Gemara in Shabbos, Kuf Tez Vav Amud Beis to Kuf Tez Zayin Amud Aleph, Tanur Rabbanan, Vayhi ben Saya, Vayomer Moshe, Parsha Zu, God made simanim, a nun, upside down mum, above and below, to teach me that this is not the right place. Meaning it doesn't belong here. It's out of place. Now, according to Rabbi, according to the Tanakama, there are 5 books in the Chumash, and in Bamidbar there's this 2 psukim of Vayhi ben Saya, and it's out of order. According to the Tanakama, there are only 5 books of the Chumash. Rabbi says it's not true, but rather Vayhi ben Saya is what? A sefer bifnei atzmai. Okay, that's the opinion of Rabbi. Rabbi Omer, Loi min Hashem hozeh, elam emneisha sefer chashav hu b'fnei atzmai. Says the Gemara, Kiman Ozla, in accordance with whom does it go? That which Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman said in the name of Rabbi Yonasan, Chatzva amudeha shiva, God hewn out 7 pillars of Torah, Elu shiva sifrei Torah. Who does this go like? Kiman Kerebi. Goes like Rabbi. Rabbi holds there's 7 books. Who argues on Rabbi? Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, we learned in a brayso. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says that this parsha is destined to be uprooted from here and written in its place. And the reason it was written here is in order to be mafsik between one paranos and another. Meaning, according to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, it's not a separate sefer. It was written here to be mafsik bein ha-paranios. How's that? What are the paranios? The paranios Rishon is they ran away from Har Sinai, and the Pirani Sheni is Vayhi ha'am ke misaynenim. Okay. Now let's begin. So, in other words, we have machlokes. Why is Vayhi ben Saya surrounded by upside down nuns? Rabbi holds because it's a separate book. They're Shiva, Shvi'i Torah. You know that thing, Chamisha Chumshei Torah? It's made up. It's not true. Sheker v'chazav, Rabbi says. There aren't 5 books in the Torah. There's 7 books in the Torah. Rosh Gamliel says there are 5 books in the Torah. Okay.
Can you pass me that Shiva, please?
Pass me the Shiva.
Instead of the Chumash.
This is the book of Haftorah. Right, exactly. It's not a Chumash, according to Rav Shimon Gamliel. You mean Mechem Yodea? Some people are drunk. They don't know. Really, it's wrong. Right? But if they would know, and also the 7 we already have. So it's going according to Shimon Gamliel, I guess. We're going to have to see, by the way, the Rashash asks that according to this, there are 26 books in Tanakh. Right? The Rashash says, why do we always say Chav Dalet Sifrei Tanakh? There are 26. By the way, let's continue. Does anybody know, how does Sefer Bamidbar begin? Who remembers? Bamidbar begins. In what month of the year? Does anybody know? Any Jews here who might know?
Malchus is always before Shiur, so Bamidbar.
No. What is the date? The date that Sefer Bamidbar was said. Right? Be'echad, very good. Rabbi Schwartz ate his Wheaties this morning. Be'echad b'chodesh hasheni. The beginning of which month? Iyar. So Bamidbar begins in Iyar. Then in Parshas Ba'aloischa we have the command to bring the Karban Pesach. Pesach is in which month? Very good. You guys are unbelievable. Pesach is in the month of Nisan. So wait a second. Everything's out of order. The book begins in Chodesh Iyar. Then you go to Ba'aloischa, it's back to Chodesh Nisan. What's going on? Says Rashi, really Bamidbar should open up with the command to bring the Karban Pesach in Nisan. The only thing is that it's going to be embarrassing for Klal Yisrael. Because the truth is, they weren't makriv the Karban Pesach in the Midbar. They're only makriv twice, in Mitzrayim and in the year 2. Other than that, they were not makriv the Karban Pesach in the Midbar. It's because they couldn't do Milah, because they didn't have the special wind. So therefore, the Torah writes it out of order and begins with the month of Iyar and then goes back to Nisan, because if we would start with Nisan, then we would be opening a sefer with complaints and tainas against Klal Yisrael that they weren't makriv the Karban Pesach. Look at number 9. Parsha Bereishis sefer loy nemra ad Iyar lamadata she'ein seder mukdam u'meuchar b'Torah. From here we learn that the Torah was not written in chronological order. V'lama loy pasach bezu. So why didn't it start with it? Mipnei shehi genusan shel Yisrael, because it's the disparagement of the Jewish people. Shekal arba'im shana shahayu yisrael b'midbar. The 40 years the Jews were in the desert. La yekrivu ela pesach zebelvad. They were only makriv. No, if they couldn't do milah. So they were an oinus, but still a genus of Klal Yisrael. So therefore, we don't want to start off. You don't start off talking about somebody as genus. If you need to shtup it in, so we'll shtup it in later. But we don't want to draw so much attention to it. Comes the Chida and he asks one of the best questions I ever heard. Says the Chida, I'm going to prove that there are 5 books of the Chumash and not 7 books of the Chumash. I'm going to prove Rav Shimon Gamliel is right, not like Rabbi. You know what the proof is? If there's 7 books of the Chumash, so book number 4 is Bamidbar. Book number 5 is Vayhi ben Saya. Book number 6 is after Vayhi ben Saya. How does book 6 begin? What does it say right after Vayhi ben Saya? The whole reason Vayhi ben Saya is there is to separate between Puranas and Vayhi Yom Kimasaynanim. If you're not going to start Bamidbar with the fact that the Jews were makriv Karban Pesach, even though it's not their fault, how in the world could you start book 6 of the Shiva with Vayhi Yom Kimasaynanim? Is a Raya Rebbe's not right? Is a Raya Rav Shimon Gamliel is right? And there are only 5 books of the Chumash. You hear the Raya? Either you hear or you're sleeping. You have to understand this. You hear the question? Right? The question is, if there's 6 books of the Chumash, then how can you begin book 6 with the Genus of Klal Yisrael? This is much worse Genus than writing that the Jews only were makriv 1 Karban Pesach in the Midbar. Says the Chida, if we don't want to write that if we don't want to begin Sefer Bamidbar that the Jews were only makriv 1 Karban Pesach, then how could we begin the book after Vayhi ben Saya with the fact that the Jews were Mesainin? Look at number 11 in the Tzavrei Shalal. V'hinei shama oznai mishem Rabbani Ashkenaz in the Maimar Bamidbar Sinai ba'ayal mayed zeh she'amar HaKasav bitnecha ka'arei masachitim. Rashi brings in Parshas Bahaloischa that really Pesach Sheni should have been in the beginning of Bamidbar. So we don't want to start the Sefer with the fact that the Jews were not makar of the Karm Pesach all the years in the Midbar. Says the Heilige Chida, we know there's a machlokes, are there 5 books or 7 books? Do we say Vayhi ben Saya is a Sefer by itself and there's 7 books? Says the Chida, let's prove that there are really 5 books. Because if there's 7 books in the Torah, how in the world could we begin book 6 with Vayhi ha'am k'mesainanim? That's mamish genos. Pesach Sheni is not really genos. It's if we would have talked about the fact that Moshe told them to bring a Karm Pesach, we could infer that they weren't makar the Karm Pesach all the years. But Vayhi ha'am k'mesainanim is outright genos. You have to say there are 5 books. And you have to say Torah's Koyanim is Vayikra. That's Pshat in the Medrash. The Pshat in the Medrash in Bamidbar is like this. You know on the words that it was in the beginning of the 2nd month, in the 2nd year, the beginning of Bamidbar, the comments of the Medrash is, Bidnecha arei maschitim, that the middle of the Torah is Vayikra. Listen carefully. We're going to go back to the first Medrash that the Chida quoted. The Chida quoted a Medrash, Bitnecha arei maschitim, the navel of the Torah is Vayikra. That's a comment on the opening words of Bamidbar. What do the opening words of Bamidbar have to do with Torah's Koyanim being in the middle of the Chumash? The answer is, since Bamidbar begins with the 2nd month, why doesn't it begin with Pesach Sheni? Because it would be a genos for Klal Yisrael. It would be a genos for Klal Yisrael, but Vayhi ha'am k'mesainanim is a genos for Klal Yisrael. It must be there are only 5 books. It must be that Vayikra is the middle book. So on the words in the beginning of Bamidbar, the Medrash says the middle book is Torah's Koyanim, because from the beginning of Bamidbar we could infer that the middle book is Torah's Koyanim. Okay, that's like a pilpul. But here's the problem. So the Chida has successfully proven that there are 5 books in the Chumash, because if there's 7, then book 6 begins with Genos. The problem is, how do we paskin? We paskin there's 7 books in the Chumash. Say, what? I never learned that. Okay, this is a good thing you came today.
Where do we learn that you can't start a Sefer with Genos?
From Rashi. Rashi says...
Maybe we don't hold like Rashi.
No, Rashi's reading the words of Chazal, that the Medrash... The Medrash... Otherwise... we should begin Bamidbar with Pesach Sheni. The fact that we don't is only because we don't begin a Sefer with Genos. The Shulchan Aruch writes that if you have a Sefer Torah and it's mostly rubbed out, except for 85 letters, you're allowed to save it on Shabbos. But if there are 84 letters, you're not allowed to save it from a fire on Shabbos. Where do we get this din that if something has 85 letters, we're allowed to save it? It says the Shulchan Aruch, look at number 12. Look at number 12. This is the Shulchan Aruch, Siman Shin Lamed Dalet Sif Yud Beis. V'chein Sefer Torah sheyesh by lalaked shmoinim v'chamesh oisiyos mitoich tevois shleimos ois sheyesh by a haskara matzilin oisa. A Sefer Torah that has 85 letters, we save it. Why? Says Mishnah Berurah, because it's still considered a Sefer, because Vayhi ben Saya has 85 letters. Yeah, but Vayhi ben Saya is a Sefer b'fnei atzma. Saraya, we paskin, yes. Vayhi ben Saya is Sefer b'fnei atzma. In fact, the great Goin Rav Meir Arik writes in his Hagoyis on the Yushalmi Tal Torah that there are certain mistakes that if they're found in one Sefer, that Sefer is pasul and the other Svarim are kosher. So he paskins l'maisa. If you find a mistake in Vayhi ben Saya, you could still lane from the end of Bamidbar because it's a Sefer b'fnei atzmai. That's how he paskins halacha l'maisa. So the question is, if halacha l'maisa, there's 7 books of the Chumash, then how are we going to learn? How could book 6 begin with Vayhi ha'am k'mesainanim, but we're beginning with Genos? What's going on over here? And Bechlal, Rabbi say, how could you have a machlokes? Are there 5 books or 7 books? That's, one thing you want to have machlokes about certain details, but how many books of the Chumash there are? Isn't that interesting that you could argue whether there are 5 books or there are 7 books? Marv Rabbi say, now we're going to learn a tremendous side. that the Ramban teaches us in his Hakdama to the Torah. The Ramban writes that even though we read the Torah and it sounds like a narrative and it sounds like a story, it ain't no story. Really, the Torah are just names of God. The only thing is, we have the words broken down as if it's a story. Bereishis, Bara, Elohim, Es. But if you break it down differently, all the Torah consists of are different names of God. And if you would read the Torah broken up as different names of God, you would be able to create worlds. In fact, the Ramban writes, look at number 15. It says, Ramban, we have in our hands, we have in our possession, a true tradition. The whole Torah are the names of God. The Torah could be subdivided into names. Let's give the following illustration. The word Bereishis could be broken up. Bereish Yispara Elohim. The whole Torah this way. Besides the combinations of words and the numerical value of words and of different names of Hashem. We know Rashi in Masechta Sukkah Daf Memhei tells us how to create the 72-letter name of Hashem. That we said many times, there are 3 consecutive Sukkim in Beshalach that have 72 letters. And through the formula of Yosher, Hafach, v'Yosher, we take the first letter of the first pasuk, the last of the second, the first of the third. We could create 72 different names of Hashem. And according to this tradition, if a Sefer Torah has a missing vav or an extra vav, the whole Sefer Torah should be pasul. Because if the Torah was just a narrative, an extra vav or a missing vav won't change things. But if the Torah is just different computations and combinations of names of God, one extra letter throws the whole thing off. Really, one extra vav or a missing vav should pasul the whole Sefer Torah. And that's why the Gemara Kedushin says that the early authorities would count the letters of the Torah. Why do I need to know the letters of the Torah? Because there are 2 dimensions of Torah, friends. There are 2 Torahs. There's the Torah as the narrative as we have it, and we break it down the way it was given to Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai. But Moshe was also given an oral tradition that the letters could be broken up differently. And if they're broken up differently, they combine to make different names of God. Says the Ramban, when the Shas tells us that in Shamayim the Torah is written black fire and white fire, it doesn't say there Bereishis, Bara, Elohim, Es, Hashamayim, V'yes Haaretz. It's broken down based on the different Shemas of Hashem. And Moshe Rabbeinu learned them, and he knew them, and Hashem told it to him Baal Peh. V'nir she'atorah k'sul be'esh chara aga be'esh levana be'inyan hazeh she'ezkarnu haya she'hoisa aksiva ritzufa. It just said Beis Reish Aleph Shin Yud Taf Beis Reish Aleph Aleph Taf B'li Hefsek v'haya efshar b'kriyasa she'tikra al derech hashemais. It could be read by the Shemais of Hashem, and it could be read al derech kriyaseina, the way we read it regarding the Torah and the mitzvahs. And it was given to Moshe b'chsav, the way we have it broken up, and it was given to him Baal Peh, the derech of the Shemais. Okay, so my Rabbi said this is a davar oyam v'noira, that there are 2 dimensions of Torah. There's the way we have it with the narrative broken up into the words as we have it, and then there's what is called the black fire and the white fire, the way the Torah is broken up in terms of all the letters continuous, and there's an oral tradition of how to break it up based on the Shemas of Hashem. Mar Rabbi says the Chida, there's no machlokes, are there 7 books or 5 books? Everyone agrees there are 5 books. Everyone agrees there are 7 books. There are 5 books of narrative and 7 books of continuous oisiyos. So you say like this, in the books of the narrative, we don't begin any book with any disparagement. Book 5 begins with the 2nd month, Chas v'Shalom with Pesach Sheni. But how could book 6, but according to the opinion that there's 6 books, then how could you begin book 6 with a Messiah? It's only 7 books in continuous writing, and in continuous writing there is no narrative. It doesn't say Vayihi ha'am k'Messiah. You know what it says? Vav Yud Hey Yud Kaf Mem Aleph. These are different Shemas of Hashem. Everyone agrees there are 5 books. Everyone agrees there are 7 books. There are 5 books of storyline. There are 7 books of continuous letters. How could you begin book 6 with Vayiyam K'Masaynim? If you say there's 7 books, it's just continuous letters. So it goes like this. At what point in history did the Torah no longer remain continuous letters and become broken up as storyline? After the Chida Egel. After the Chida Egel, Hashem said this world can't handle just continuous letters. You have the Torah as a storybook. Continuous letters will just be tradition. Will just be Torah Shabbat Peh.
So the Luchos or Rishonim, do they have continuous letters too?
Luchos were in the Sefer Torah. It just said.
That's the way the
it said Anochi Hashem.
Torah, right?
It says Anochi Hashem. It's a question whether the whole Sefer Torah was written on the Luchos. Let's see how he plays it out. Look at number 16. What? Oh, that they're 5? Actually, the Medrash Hashishi, everything was dependent on the 6th day of creation, right? The 5 days, the 5 Chumashim? Maybe there's a Medrash like that. That Medrash is going like Rosh Gamliel. Okay, look in Savarei Hashal, look number 16. V'ulam neida nir deval derabim asher itanu savri. Many hold that there are 7 books. So how are they going to answer the fact that book 6 begins with Vayiyam K'Masaynim? So you could say like this: V'ev shaloymer diyadua deba'avoinho egel nislabsha haTorah b'sipurim elo. The truth is, when the Torah was originally meant to be given, it was going to be given, like the Ramban says, black fire on white fire, continuous letters. But because of the Ched HaEgel, the Torah was cloaked and clothed and masked in stories. But the Torah are combinations of shemos and secrets, and is not really read the way we read it. We read it as stories. Rak ha'oisios asher tavoina him soidos amukim. The letters as they come are deep secrets. Lamala v'tzirufei shemos. Ula asid lavai. And in the future, Niska Lilmoid HaTorah Mipiv Yisbarach, we will end up learning the Torah from Hashem. V'chobanach mudei Hashem. When Hashem teaches us the Torah in the future, we're not going to learn it that Avram Avinu served 3 malachim. We're going to learn the Torah the way it was meant to be, continuous letters, and we'll understand the Tzirufei Shemos and the Razei de Razin, but instead of the Sipurim, there'll be Shemos HaKodesh. That's what Chazal mean, that the Torah we have today is child's play compared to the Torah of Mashiach. The Kavanah is that the arrangement of these letters are stories, and compared to the Torah of Mashiach, it is child's play. Then the Oisiyos will be read as Sirufei Shemos. Then we'll read the Torah, we'll learn the Torah from the mouth of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not through an intermediary. Okay, bottom line is, the Torah today is cloaked in story. Therefore, if we begin Bamidbar with Pesach Sheni, it would be a problem. Also, if we begin book 6 with the Masaynim, it would be a problem. But the Torah as Sirufei Shemos, there's no Gnos, because it doesn't say that story. It's just letters and words and Shemos of Hashem. So now let's going back to the Medrash. The Medrash says, on the first day of the 2nd month, this is what it means. Bitnacha arei maschitim, just like the navel is in the middle. Why do I need a mashal? Just like the navel is in the middle, Taras Kayanim is in the middle. Just say, Taras Kayanim is in the middle. The answer is that it's a remez, that the Torah now is an allegory. And it doesn't begin, Sefer Bamidbar, with the Gnusa of Klal Yisrael, because since it's an allegory, that mashal and that story would be demeaning for the Jewish people. So then it comes out that there has to be 5 Svarim. Because if it's an allegory, it has to be 5 Svarim, because otherwise book 6 will begin with the Gnus. And then it comes out Taras Kayanim is in the middle. And this is alluded to that just like the navel is in the middle of the body, so too the Torah today is all in allegorical terms. But la'asid lavai, we won't need the stories. We'll just have the letters, and they'll taka be 7 svarim. By the way, we've learned many times that Vayihi ben Saya used to be as big as the entirety of the rest of the Torah, but we were only Zocha to 2 psukim. So this is what the Medrash says. So basically like this, we lost. According to the opinion that there's 7 Svarim, so Vayihi ben Saya, isn't it strange that Bereishis has 100,000 letters, and Chumash has 100,000 letters, and Vayihi ben Saya has 85 letters? Why is it so small? So there's a tradition, the Zohar says there's 600,000 letters in the Torah. But if you count them, it's only half. The answer is we lost them. It was lost at that point when we complained. In that point in history, when we were about to go into Eretz Yisrael and we sinned with the Messiah, those letters were lost.
So when Moshe wrote the Torah?
Moshe, the plan was the Torah was going to have 600,000 letters. And the Chida brings down that we lost about 300,000 of them. Where were they? They were in Vayihi ben Saya Harin.
Nothing of letters missing from the Torah.
From the Torah that we were given, nothing was missing. That's why it says, Torah me'iti teitzei. The Medrash says a new Torah will come forth. How could a new Torah come forth? One of the Yud Gimel Ikrim is Torah zulay te mechlaves lo te oy Torah me'Hashem Yisbarach. It's not a new Torah. It was given. It was withheld from us. It was withheld from.
Question, Rabbi. If we say why does Vayihi ben Saya have only 85 letters? So we say 300,000 were missing. Well, if they have 300,000, why is Vayihi ben Saya having letters equal to all the other Sfarim combined? Why would it be so big?
Right. So we said that because it comes from the Shar Nun. It's the highest madrega of Torah. So, okay. Be it as it may.
What is this? Mitzvahs?
No, not more mitzvahs. I don't know. I'll find out. Hopefully we'll find out. We should find out soon.
If we knew what it was,
so let's see. So he says the Chida, let's see this. That the Medrash says, Bitnecha arei maschitim, Toras kayanim, chatoim. You know why there are 5 svarim now? We know why the Torah was nislabesh. It's because of our chatoim. Meaning the connection between Toras kayanim being the middle sefer of the Torah and chatoim is because of our chatoim. Memela, there has to be 5 svarim. Because of our chatoim, there cannot be 7 svarim. 7 svarim are only possible if you have the Torah continuously, because otherwise you'd be giving book 6 with the Gnus of Klal Yisrael. The reason why there are only 5 svarim is because of our chatoim. Now says the Chida, the truth is, this medrash that I heard does not exist. In the beginning of Bamidbar, it just says, if you look at number 17, I quote it, on the Pasuk, Shararech Agan Hasar, that's talking about the Sanhedrin that was in the Lishkas Hagazos, that just like the Shiur is in the middle of the body, so too the Sanhedrin is in the middle of the Beis HaMikdash. So the truth is, the Medrash I'm basing this on does not exist. In the Medrash Chazis, it darshans it on Taras Kaihanim. And my heart, and I think there is room to make, he says to darshan this. Okay, be it as it may, he says a very interesting thing. The Arizal writes, and it's quoted in the Sefer Zera Berech, that the menorah is a remez to the Torah. We know the menorah is a remez to the Torah. And does anybody know, when you're meitiv the neiros, anybody know how you're meitiv the neiros? First of all, what does meitiv the neiros mean? When you clean out the ashes and the old wicks, you don't do the whole thing at the same time. You do 5, you do another avodah, and then you do 2. Why do you do it that way? Just do the whole thing. The answer is because the menorah is a remez to the Torah. The Torah is 5 books, the Torah is 7 books. But they're different. They're 5 books in storyline. There's 7 books in continuous letters. So therefore, the menorah, which is a remez to this, you clean out 5 neiros, then you do another avodah, and you clean out 2. That's from, he quotes Rav Agal, Marina Rav Avram, Ki ba'arzeh cholku atavas haneiros, hey levadu be'zavad. Like Abaye establishes in the Gemara, the menorah is a remez to the Torah. There are 5 books, and there's 7 books. I'm reading from number 16. I'm halfway through. So the question is, if there's 7 books, What do you mean 5 and 2? If there's 7 books, there's 7 books. Why would you break it up into 5 and 2? I understand the Mandomer that there are 5 books, so the menorah should only have 5 branches. And the Mandomer that there's 7 books, you should do all 7 at a time. You really haven't answered the question. You're right, the menorah is a remez to the Torah, but what do you mean there are 5 books and they're 7? If they're 5, they're only 5. If they're 7, they all should go together. The answer is Elu Velu Divrei Elokim Chayim. There are 5 books of narrative, there's 7 books of continuous oisiyos. He says, there are 5 books of Sipurim. La'asid Lavai, there's 7 books of continuous oisiyos. So then you're going to be starting book 6 with Mesainanim? No, because La'asid Lavai, that book 6, it won't say Vayhi Amkim Mesainanim, it will just say the letters. That's how we do 2, and then we do 5.
So we're not going to have Stumus from Sufos either in the...
Yeah. Just continuous letters. That's why we're mative 2 alone, because 2 are ganos. So this is, let's come back. What does this have to do with the Haftorah? This all comes back to the pasuk. Hashem chafetz l'man sidkai yagdil Torah v'yadir. That the menorah shows that Hashem wants to make the Torah bigger. How does the menorah show that Hashem wants to make the Torah bigger? Because when we clean out the menorah, why do we do 5 and then 2? There are only 5 books in the Torah. The answer is now there are 5. La'asalave, they're going to be 7. So Hashem, because of His righteousness, He wants to be Magdil the Torah. Emar Mayata, the last paragraph, number 16. Lema'amarin b'haloischa. Zeh shamar kaza, Hashem chavis man tzidkai. The Efsha, the Kashalei, the menorah is a remez to the Torah. And the truth is there's 7 Sfarim. So why do we do 5 and 2? Hashem chavis man tzidkai. Yagdil Torah. That la'asid lavai v'yadir. La'asid lavai, Hashem is going to mechazek us, and we'll have stronger senses. Yagdil Torah refers to the 7 books of la'asid lavai yagdil. Lahaba. Elamai. But then it's going to be a gnus for the Mesainanim? No, v'yadir. Hashem will strengthen our kayach, and we won't deny the gnus, because we'll be able to handle the tzirufei shemais. Meaning, right now we can't even be soivel the tzirufei shemais. But la'aseh lavai Hashem chafetz l'man tzidkai yagdil. Hashem wants to be magdil the Torah. But then we're going to have Gnus in the beginning of book 6. The answer is V'yadir. God will strengthen us. We'll be able to be soivel the kedusha of the tzirufei oisiyos, and then it won't even say anymore Vayhi Amkim Mesainanim.
But if they beat the West, it won't be the story beside him. It will be entirely different other things.
Well,
it's really stories. Because it's 5 stories.
No stories.
No stories.
The lesson is stories are for the faint-hearted, right? But
so what's the problem with Yibisayim? It's not going to be, but by the 7th book, it won't be Yibisayim. It will be
right. So Taka, according to that opinion, Vayivin Saya is not there to be mafsik bein paranos and banos. It's there because it's a sefer b'fnei atzmai. That's the machlokes. Rabbi says, so it comes out the machlokes 5 or 7. It's not really a machlokes. There are 5 books of storyline, 7 books of tzirufei oisiyos. La'ased lavei there'll be 7. But because la'ased lavei there'll be 7, even bisman hazeh, if you have a sefer Torah with 85 letters, that's still a Torah b'fnei atzmai. Rabbi say, wonderful Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.